Hello, friends. Let's talk today about the initial stage of immigration. We'll discuss what needs to be done at the beginning and, most importantly, the timelines for this process. To begin with, if you have decided to immigrate to Montenegro and if you have chosen to immigrate by opening a company in Montenegro, you will, of course, need to open this company as well as submit documents for certification, that is, for recognition by the Ministry of Education of Montenegro. These are two mandatory steps on the basis of which, in fact, your residence permit will later be approved. So, what are the timeframes for this process? So, why did I decide to make this video? Because sometimes there are situations when a client comes to me and I tell them the actual timeframes for this process. Then they go and talk to some so-called specialists who give them some overly optimistic timeframes. They say, "Oh my God, what did they tell you? This whole thing is easy. 1, 2, 3. You'll have all the documents in a week." Honestly, I'm not denying that sometimes it does go quickly. For example, the last company I submitted for registration was open in literally 3 days. I was surprised myself. But objectively speaking, that was just luck. Sometimes things like that do happen. The lawyer at the registry was given the document. Apparently, he wasn't busy. Maybe he had just finished all his previous work or had just come back from vacation. He didn't have any other case. He took the packet of documents and processed it right away. So yes, sometimes it does go that quickly, but not always. You need to give people realistic timeframes, not just tell them they'll get lucky and have everything done in a few days. That's what I do. But some people don't. Probably it's either some beginner agencies that just got lucky and managed to open a couple of companies. They were lucky that they opened quickly and they decided that's how it will always be. Or it's simply people deliberately lying to attract clients. And so I decided, since I've encountered such cases more than once, to put an end to this issue once and for all. So let's talk about the timeframes for opening a company and for notification, as well as possible delays and why they happen. I'll start with opening a company. First, the basic time frame. This is what I call the basic time frame for opening a company. In other words, this is the period within which the vast majority will receive their documents. Yes, some people might be unlucky, some might experience delays, but most will get them within this time frame. That's 1 month. Within a month, documents almost always come through in a normal situation. If nothing happens, of course, unless there's some kind of coronavirus epidemic or something else. In a typical situation, most people receive their documents within a month. Sometimes the time frame can actually be shorter. I just gave an example. One of my companies was opened in 3 days, 3 or 4, I don't remember exactly. But sometimes it takes longer. That is, sometimes you submit the documents and they review them for a month and a half. No response. And at the same time, documents that were submitted after these companies were already processed. So that happens too. What are the possible reasons for delays? I mentioned the standard time frame is a month. Most documents are received within this period. But what kinds of delays can occur? The following types of delays can happen. First, delays can occur for absolutely no apparent reason. I just gave an example. You submit the documents and they review them for a month and a half. No response. Other companies submitted their documents 2 weeks ago and have already received them. So why does it take 3 times longer to review one company than another? It's impossible to understand, but this does happen sometimes. Next, someone made a mistake. Who could make a mistake? For example, the register may be wrong. Most often, the errors are either in the company name or in the founder's passport detail. Both of these need to be corrected. You go to the registry and see there's a mistake. Then you write a statement. Guys, you made a mistake. Please fix it. They say, we'll fix it without any problem, but you'll have to wait for a while. Usually it takes about 2 weeks. So you've already waited for some time. Now add another 2 weeks to that. The lawyer you talk to, for example, I myself can also make a mistake. If someone tells you they never make mistakes, that person is just blatantly lying. Anyone who works with documents, even occasionally, does make mistakes from time. That includes me as well. Although I make significantly fewer mistakes by an order of magnitude than the average in the field. I've worked with documents my entire life, and I've developed a certain system. In fact, I would say it's a unique system specifically for preparing documents to open companies. There's nothing complicated about it. It's simply about the order and method of preparing the data for filling out the document. In what sequence should you fill out the charter, for example? So there are these small nuances, but I make far fewer mistakes than others. For instance, I make about 1 mistake a year. That is, I have to redo one set of documents per year because I made a mistake somewhere. For comparison, the registry makes about 2 or 3 mistakes per month. I'm not talking about the mistakes they make across all their documents. I'm only referring to the documents that I personally submit to them. So I make 1 mistake a year while they make about 20 to 30 mistakes a year. In other words, I make about 20 to 30 times fewer mistakes than the average in the chamber. And even if you don't compare with just an average person, but with lawyers who work, in fact, at a reputable organization, there you have it. But nevertheless, everyone has them. So these are the kinds of reasons for delays. Yes, the vacation season, of course, also has an impact. Some people go on vacation, but in recent years, this hasn't had a significant effect on the registry. There were serious delays due to the vacation season about 8 or 9 years ago. But someone drew the appropriate conclusions, they reorganized their work somehow, and it hasn't happened again since. So why is that? Because there are a lot of them there. I don't know exactly how many lawyers work there. Visually, I'd say about 10 people. That's it. Well, accordingly, 10 people work there, 2 people went on vacation. It's not a big deal. Are still 8 people continuing to work. Yes, maybe because of those 2 being away, things might take 3 or 4 days longer to process, but those are major delays. In other words, in short, vacation season doesn't seriously affect the registry, unlike the ministry we'll talk about next, the Ministry of Education. By the way, we're done with the registry. Let's talk about the timelines at the Ministry of Education. The standard time frame I mentioned in a normal situation, if nothing happens, is 1 month. At the same time, again, for some people it happens much faster, for others it takes a bit longer. But most people receive their documents within a month. I base my estimate on the time frame in which the majority receive their documents. But that's in a normal situation. Right now, after February 24, the situation is unusual. Why? Because there's been a surge of people. I myself am working until midnight almost every day. Sometimes I manage to finish at 11 or 10:30, but never earlier. It's the same for everyone else involved in this work, for example, translators. So yes, the flow of people won't last forever, but it will continue for some time, and right now it's still ongoing. Translators are also overloaded, and many of them are working late into the night as well. That's how it is. In order to submit documents to the Ministry of Education, you first need to have your educational documents translated. Before you would give your documents to a translator, you know which translators are faster, and in 2 or 3 days you'd get your document back. Well, maybe you don't know which translators are fast. I know which translators are faster. I give it to them, and in 2 or 3 days I get the document back. Now the situation is a bit different. First of all, those who translate faster are overloaded with work. Secondly, they can't handle the entire volume. So you have to turn to a translator who works more slowly. As a result, it all depends on your luck. For example, you submit a document for translation well. It depends on whom you turn to and how busy she is. So I gave one person a document to translate and got it back in 3 days. I gave another person a document to translate and got it back in 3 weeks. So now it's quite realistic that it might take 3 weeks to get a document translated. That's just normal now. I'm talking specifically about educational documents since they're a bit more complicated. For example, if you submit something like a certificate of no criminal record for translation, naturally it will be translated for you faster since it is simply simpler. That's how it. Educational documents can take much longer to translate. And accordingly, if the standard time frame used to be a month, now I don't even know what it is. It could be a month or it could be 2. So when will you get this translation? Back when will I get it back? I handed it in today. When will I get it back? Will I get it the day after tomorrow or in 3 weeks? I don't know. That's how it is. And accordingly, the timelines for notification have increased significantly because of this workload. Next, sometimes there are delays for no reason. For example, right now I have several people whose notification applications I submitted quite a while ago, about a month back. The documents still haven't come out. And there are a bunch of people whose notification applications I submitted just a week ago. Their documents have already come out. So you see, there aren't really any objective reasons here. Apparently, they just put them somewhere and then piled other cases on top. So first they process the ones on top, and then they'll get to the ones on the bottom. That's probably how it works. Next, vacation season. This has a big impact on the ministry. Why? Because unlike the registry, there aren't that many people there. So if in the registry there are about 10 people opening handling company registrations, in the ministry there are maybe a couple of people. In the higher education department, a couple in the secondary education department. Then if one person goes on vacation, everything starts to pile up. If 2 people go on vacation, that's it. And then the person who is supposed to sign the documents might also go on vacation, which means everything will come to a halt there as well. Even if those employees have processed the documents, there's no one to sign them. And this is a big problem. It's a major issue. It actually shows up a little bit differently every single year. In fact, some years, for example, there are even 2 week delays. Well, it's bad, but honestly, it's really not the end of the world. But another year, someone goes on vacation, and for a month or 2, nothing works at all. That's how it is. People just sit and wait. There's nothing you can do. Sometimes it's a personal reason, a similar kind of reason. Well, someone just got sick. No one went on vacation, but someone got sick. For example, during an epidemic, this sometimes happens. Someone gets sick and they're out of work for 2 or 3 weeks. And again, everything at work comes to a halt. So when do these kinds of delays usually happen? Well, most often this happens during vacation season. Vacation season usually falls between June and September. As for when it will be in the ministry, it's useless to ask me, I don't know. No one reports that to me. That's how it is. So somewhere between June and September, someone will go on vacation and everything will come to a standstill for a while. What conclusion should we draw? I've stated the conclusion many times, and for many years I've been repeating the same thing over and over. It's foolish to come to Montenegro and do all these things on the spot. You need to open a company and submit your document for notification in advance, even before leaving your home country, so that when you arrive, everything is already prepared and you can start working on your residence permit. However, about 90% of the people who come to me for help end up doing exactly that. Here's a power of attorney, we'll send it to you. By the way, you can find out how to do this from me. I have a very detailed instruction manual. Just contact me using the information provided in the description of this video and I'll send it to you. That's it. But sometimes, probably about 10% of people say, we're not in a hurry, we'll open it locally after we arrive. Well, that's your choice. But their reaction afterwards is always the same, like a carbon copy, exactly the same for everyone. They arrive, and after a while, they start to realize that they'll have to wait. And it's not really clear for how long, and that they'll have to spend time and money on this in advance. And then they start to panic and they begin to pester me. What's going on? Why is this happening? How come? Is there any way to speed this up? I say, guys, I told you before you left that this is how it would be. I told you it was a bad idea. This was your conscious decision. What do you want from me? You made this choice yourselves. Now just sit and wait. That's it. I urge you not to make this mistake and take care of all these things in advance, so you don't end up sitting here waiting for something to happen. Friends, my name is Dimitri. You can reach out to me with questions about immigration to Montenegro, as well as questions about life in the country. Goodbye, everyone.